Well, like, should I look at? I feel like maybe I looked at this section pretty more thoroughly down here. This is the art crit, lit crit, film crit, that sort of thing. Some randomness like poetry and graphic works mixed in. This book in no way describes me. I love them. The perfect, correct amount of a lot. This one is the true story of a thief, a detective, and a world of literary obsession. The guy that wrote The Devil in White City, Eric Larson, says it's compelling with elegant suspense. Love that title. Book about houses and the idea of home. Most beautiful house in the world. I love Diogenes. He doesn't have a lot of surviving writing, so he's paired with Heraclitus here, who to me is forgettable. I can't remember anything about him. I've read this. I'm sure there's good stuff there too. But Diogenes, radical. Bukowski-like figure in his time, even more so. Rejected the material world in an interesting way, refused to own things, lived in a barrel. Got rid of a cup when he realized he could drink with his hands. I pissed on the man who called me a dog. Why was he so surprised? It's not for charity, but my salary that I beg in the streets. Even with a lamp in broad daylight, I cannot find an honest man. Good man is a picture of God. Pretty whores, poison honey. Quotable quotes. I was once as young and silly as you are now, but I doubt if you will become as old and wise as I. It's great. Good old Diogenes. There's some stuff here. Most of this I talked about. Lisa Grass is so good. Book on Sontag. Everyone thinks she's a genius. Allie Smith. Hurtful. Adapted by 4 lectures given at Oxford. Refusing to be tied down either to fiction or the essay. Yeah, I feel like I should read this. Part fiction, part essay. Started it, a couple of times. You know how sometimes you start a book without the intent to read it all the way through, like you read a chapter or two at a bookstore? But that used to be in the writing section. It should maybe go there. I like the idea of this book, reviewing 6 Cervantes novels. That's awesome. It's crazy how funny and fresh his writing feels. And he wrote in the 1600s. To read Don Quixote is to have had an experience, I think. I know I looked at this book in another video, but pretty. I love Werner Herzog. What's his name? Werner Herzog. I know his name. See, that's COVID brain. My brain's like Swiss cheese now, but probably from COVID. Great. Twice. It's a neurological disease that everyone's afraid to study. There's a Saturday Night Live sketch that kind of makes fun of people being in denial about all the COVID symptoms that are like really common now in society. People mixing up words in weird ways. But Fitzcarraldo was an insane shoot. This is the one where they moved a giant steamboat over a peninsula. They kind of gave up, but they messed around with it forever. And there's a really interesting documentary about it, the making of it. Werner Herzog is just like an intense personality at that time. I'm sure still is. And he was working with Klaus Kinski, who was such like one of the most deranged, almost dangerous actors to ever do it. Really did a tour to promote that he was Jesus, and people didn't realize it. After the last time he worked with Herzog was like, he brought the most evil energy to the set. I just vowed to never work with him again. But they made some great movies together. And the documentary about their frenemy ship is quite good. My best fiend. Well, says the elder missionary, we can't seem to cure the Indians of their basic notion that our normal life is just an illusion, behind which lies the reality of dreams. In certain ways, this does relate to our basic concept of salvation, but this interests me very much, interrupts Fitzcarraldo. You see, I am a man of opera. And originally Mick Jagger was going to play Fitzcarraldo, and that's a wild thing to see, those scenes which were filmed and are part of DVD extras sometimes. Best Director, Cannes, 1982. I've got 2 Herzog box sets, one just with Klaus Kinski and one just his other movies. And anyway, good old Herzog. I like the existentialism that he brings to film. He started his whole movie-making career with just stolen equipment from a film school. That's so insane. Film, everything. Wow. Raises an ethical question. Is it right to steal film equipment if it creates a career as good as Herzog's? Maybe he paid him back later. You could see him doing something like that. Directors are interesting to me. I hope to direct sometime. I think I will. I've always said that if I could have the career I would want, it would be alternating writing books with making movies. Like Marguerite Duras. It's just things you can do with movies that you can't do with books, and vice versa. Movies are really like a distillation of all the arts. I mean, you can include everything in there. Architecture, music, dance, whatever. Every kind of visual art, basically. But books are like the best thing for interiority and for connecting with other human minds and the ideas in them. And, you know, I love that quote. I don't know who said it. Someone is just endlessly revving an engine right now. Thanks, dude. You're making the suburbs just great. It's awesome. The quote's something like, a movie or a TV show puts a world inside your mind, but a book puts you inside the world. And I think that's true. It's a totally different way of experiencing art. There's some cool books on this shelf here. I wish that one wasn't so beat up. It's so cool to read this. If we're in better shape, this would be on the antique shelf, but 1935. 1936. To a distinguished Canadian and his charming wife. I did that hike across the country. We finished on the Gaspé Peninsula in Quebec, Canada. And so this book is all about that peninsula, and it's old. And I remember looking through it at a hostel on that hike, so I had a connection for it. I tracked it down online later. It's got some great parts. If I had some easy way to find them, I'd read them. Like there's this one where they meet a young boy who helps them gather berries or sells them a pail of berries, and in exchange, I gave him a cigarette and lit a smoke. And then one time they do tourism to some scenic asbestos piles. I'm like, this is really from another time. Ooh, ancient marginalia. Let's check it out. Beautiful. Magnificent. This looks like someone's personal travel notes. Except, yeah, look, someone underlined the highway roads with terrifying abruptness. Huh? That's just what I said to my husband. Building wall against landslide. Hunter's cabin, question mark? Oh, what a beautiful part of the world. A lot of people don't realize that the colonization of the east coast of North America started with Newfoundland, which is just north of right here. That's up where like Anne of Green Gables would have lived, you know. And so these areas are really important and interesting. Also, there's like Viking sites around there. What else? Is there anything else I missed on here? Remember I mentioned that I read my essay, 101 Jokes for Epileptic Children, at a house show? So did this guy. And he tore down the house too. Can't remember if he read before or after me. But yeah, formerly John, now Jamie Mortara. Mike, what an honor to read with you. I had a blast in your work rules. I can't wait to see more of it. That's so cool. Because this guy could, every spirit builds itself a house, and beyond its house a world, and beyond its world a heaven. Know then that the world exists for you. Build, therefore, your own world. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Hey, that's beautiful. My friend Ray and when I lived in Alaska with him, used to be like, no more Emerson quotes. Because I love to quote Emerson. I was always reading Emerson. He just had a horrible cancer scare and got it removed, and it seems like he has a clean bill of health, and everything was like less bad than everyone thought, and it's just awesome. Ray, thinking of you all the time, buddy. My friend Danny says he sometimes watches this channel. Danny, if you ever watch this channel, isn't that great to hear about Ray? You wake in a world where everyone is a robot and they're trying to build humans. Some visual stuff. Number 1 says it can't be done. Says we can only make ourselves. No others. Says we can only be what we are. Must we be vicarious? Here you are. Awake in a world where number 3 waits patiently at your table side. Who are you? How do you live? What bulb lights those eyes? Are there others like you somewhere? You must give us blueprints to build. We have tried everything. Number 7 spent a millennium with his first prototype, a total failure. All it did was spit algorithms and lose its skin. Number 13 grew a heart on its sleeve, but it seized when he made it a partner. Number 9's design cried until it died bone dry. Number 16 screamed, screamed, screamed. Number 1 says it cannot be done. Here you are, and number 3 had to stop number 7 from tearing you open for inspection. What do you remember? Well, I remember a flash and a bang. Am I dead? No, says number 11. That's the problem. You are the only thing here that is alive. Well, that's cool. It leaves me feeling some kind of way. To read Cervantes is you'll always be interested in Cervantes afterward. I love Don Quixote, and so anytime I see something related to its author or by him, I grab it. Milan Kundera in The Art of the Novel says that Don Quixote was the first modern novel and codified the conventions of the modern novel. This is just such a beautiful book. I'm like, I have to read this because it's just so impressive to me as a physical object. 1970. I sure have mixed feelings about Felix Fenton. I mean, he literally killed like 30 people in a cafe with a bomb. But this is an amazing work by and for scholars that collects all his works beside the novels in 3 lines, and has a lot to say about him, etc. Color print sections. He must have been a painter too. I've not read all of this. I've just read parts of it. Okay, these aren't by him. These are beautiful. This was given to me by my friend Thomas, who walks everywhere, and I had the first conversation I ever had with him. He knows I like this movie. First conversation I ever had with him, he's walking by, he's all, I have to tell you. Oh, what? I have to tell you, you have a very handsome cat. Because our cat was... This is a super interesting guy from Texas who is so politically well-read, but he's like obsessed and fixated. That's all he talks about is politics. And, yeah, great guy. But, yeah, I've known him for like my kids' whole lives. That's so crazy how time adds up. He's this kind of eccentric guy. He looks like Colonel Sanders a little bit, and dresses like he plays steel guitar in like a country swing band with like bolo ties and suits and cowboy boots and stuff. He's from Texas originally. He works on the custodial staff at an Air Force base, at Kirtland Air Force Base, and can't tell me anything about his job. It's all secret. Anyway, Thomas gave me this, and it's pretty interesting, full of fun facts. Gotta love A Power to the People. Inspiring movie. Ugh, I've always meant to read this, but have I? I think I may have listened to the audiobook once. But I should read this. Bill Bryson's great, and he's got these 2 totally different modes. He goes from writing funny travelogues to writing fact-filled, well-researched books on this or that subject. He has one on the history of the universe, story of the universe. He's got one on Shakespeare. And this one's on English language in America. I bet this is full of interesting facts. Like, it is so interesting when you know some things about patterns of colonization in America and stuff, to hear all the accents in different places. Like, here's what happens to this one accent over this much time. Wild. I have walked from Key West, Florida to Cape Gaspé in Quebec, across the East Coast with a charity hike, and that was a very fascinating linguistic experience. I learned so much about all the different regional accents and dialects and words and so on. Most of America lives in that part of the country, so we really saw a lot of it population-wise. I mean, I'll never forget hearing my first yins in Pittsburgh. I'm like, people say yins, and you really do hear people say yous in New Jersey. And Southern dialects are amazing, and there's so many varieties, and they're great. I hear there's islands off the coast of Virginia where people are basically speaking Elizabethan English still. So I bet this book is way interesting because, America really is a patchwork country with all these different languages, and there were indigenous languages here before that most of our state names come from, etc. In England, the big change in the language was when the Normans invaded in 1066 and brought the hard K sound and a lot of new words and sounds, kind of Francifized, what's the word? English, And they brought Norwegian elements too. I mean, that was a half Norwegian invasion. Read 1066, The Year of Conquest. That's a great, slim book that reconstructs a very long ago event in a great way and makes you realize how important it is. It's where all the patterns of modern conquest and imperialism kind of seem to have begun. That's why castles had to be built across Europe to control the peasants, because the soldiers had been promised the spoils of war, which was the place where people were and the people, and yeah, yikes. I didn't exactly feel proud when I found out one of my ancestors on my dad's side, last name Klaug, received an estate in his name from William the Conqueror during that invasion. That's the oldest ancestor I've been able to find, like specific ancestor. Klaug, a soldier of William the Conqueror, 1066. Received a parcel there. Klaug, or Clough, means ravine. A direct ancestor on my dad's side, I guess. Crazy. But what was the equivalent of that in America, I wonder? You know? I mean, there was the English invasion of America. So that's kind of wild. English was brought with the invaders. But probably lots of different waves of migration. I wonder. That's why I should read this book, I guess. I don't know anything about this painter, but when I saw this book, I'm like, I must have it. It's a beautiful old book, and painters always have great thoughts on art, I think. So maybe it's like Robert Henri. He's also a painting teacher. Awesome. I think I read this, but I don't much remember it. 1960 edition of a 1930 book. Wow. That's so cool. I gotta read that sometime. Again, this is like the art crit, lit crit, film crit section. Oh, here's a book I just recently got. So this used to be in the lobby at my kid's dance studio, but it was getting trashed, and people were like leaving it on the floor, and it was ripped up and stuff, so I saved it. It's kind of one of those ambiguous free piles where it's like, are people allowed to take these? There's no sign or anything. The books never seem to rotate. But I taped it back up because this is a really interesting read. All its chapters on the history of dance and like the beginnings of the art form of ballet. It started in French courts in the 1500s. I was just waiting for my daughter for like an hour one day. And starts with dances of ancient. This is interesting stuff to know. And dance really is a beautiful art form that is neglected in writing about art, because it's so ephemeral. You know, your dance is like an Andy Goldsworthy piece. You know, it's over. But I'm glad to have this, and it I don't know, it gave me an idea for a writing essay that I'm going to write. I began thinking about the connected way that these dance moves are thought about and talked about in this book. It's like holistic. It's really interesting. And I began thinking about like, what would a choreographed piece of writing be? And it seems like it would just be one where every action led to the next action, like Mad Max Fury Road or something. So I thought, well, that would be interesting to like take a cluttered house and clean it up and include every step. In a way, that's what Knausgaard does in My Struggle Book 1. But I think that could be a really satisfying, I'm like something like that, you know, an essay where you just clean your house up and kind of keep track of your thoughts. And, and you could document a real one, you know, so you'd have a lot to draw from when you were writing that. It could really be nonfiction, but it'd be like kind of pre-planned descriptive nonfiction like Sheila Heti sets up. And I swear I was doing that in my work before I read her work, but now I'm like, that seems very her. Like I've planned, a piece of writing like that for a long time before I'd even read How Should a Person Be by her, where she does that. I don't know, what can I say? Great minds think alike and all that stuff, hopefully. This really was kind of a joy to read. Lester Bangs, he's a lively, interesting music critic, depicted by Philip Seymour Hoffman in Almost Famous, and very beat influenced. Let us now praise famous death dwarves. Hey, AG reference. Work of a legendary critic. Rock and roll is literature, and literature is rock and roll. Edited by Karl Marx. Cool. I'll reread that someday. I enjoyed it. Gave me tons of good music recommends too, like the Trogs. I really got into the Trogs. Everybody in my family loves this book. All my kids love it. I would not all of them are appropriate for young readers. I mean, they've got like swearing and stuff, and depression, but there are several that are, and this is just hilarious. And many of these things are family-like currency now, conversational currency. Mom, I can run the parp. I can run the parp, Mom. That's this true story. This is nonfiction, I guess. So this true story about childhood where she's on all these painkillers from the dentist, and she's trying to get her mom to let her go to this party. If she can run across the park, then she can go to the party. It's so funny, I'm telling you. This is great. This is nonfiction. It's fantastic. I read the sequel to it also, which is good, but it strikes a really different tone. It doesn't really go for the laughs in the same way. But glad it exists. This is just all-time classic, though. I was thinking so much about the visual ever since I've been working on my more visual pieces, like June Reading a City, which involved a lot of photography going back to 2020. So I was just thinking about images, and then the comic, of course, and which is a chapter of my book mentioned in another video. But this book, yeah, I got some things out of this. Kept this by my bedside table for a long time. Binding is unfortunately not good. Wuxia Swan. Columbus, Ohio. Anyway, I love books like this. Anytime you see an obscure art book or something like that, grab it. Especially if it's beautiful as an object, you know. I thought someone was knocking, but no. I thought about putting this one in the weird books, the psychopath test. It's kind of weird. This is one of my favorite books about art. It's so good. The Anti-Aesthetic Essays on Postmodern Culture. You never know when a weird little book will come along and be a big influence on you. This one did that to me. Like, I can't even exactly define how it affected me, but it definitely, like, left me thinking more spatially and thinking more about just, I don't know, art and seeing everything that way. Oh, Baudrillard's hand, that's so cool. Yeah, I have read Baudrillard. Yeah, you know, when you read good academic stuff about stuff you care about, you realize, oh, academic writing is not just all hot air. There's really good stuff there. It's cool to think about art and in detail and like blow your mind. Sometimes if you just see the structures of work or the meanings of work, it's like looking at the plot of like a Philip K. Dick novel or something. Here's something I've only skimmed, but I've always meant to read. How to Read Buildings, a crash course in architectural styles. My younger sister, formerly younger brother, gave me this. Looks like a really nice book. I like the compactness and denseness of it. And the beautiful color illustrations. That's so nice. Classy, but it's like just single color inks. That's so good looking. I love that. That's great. Whoa, I have to read this. Have I even opened this before? I feel like I've never seen this amazing interior. One last one. This is pretty cool. The Inner Life of Westerns. This is about Westerns and how they mythologize and create the West. About novels and films. Shows how popular novels and films about the American West have shaped the emotional lives of people in our time. I knew someone who was making a vampire lesbian Western called The Dream of the Glass Desert, and she stayed at my old house for a long time. And Sarah Century is a very cool filmmaker, but I remember she read this while she stayed there. Got a lot out of it. This was my sister Leanne's. I got this in a inheritance box. She had all these boxes for everyone in her life that she would always put stuff in to send to people because she was just always thinking of people. She was like such a thoughtful person. And after she died, then her husband sent out all the boxes to everybody for one last time. You know, she was like a thoughtful person. If she saw a book that reminded you of her, like you'd probably get it in the mail. You know? Like who does that? That's amazing. That's pretty retro. Unheard of anymore, maybe. And of course, you gotta love when it gets meta, the philosophy of art history. It's not about art history, it's about the philosophy of art history. Cool. What do I think of this collage? I read an interview with one great collage artist, and she said the secret is to use more black to separate your elements more. So that's very good advice. All I know is I've taken some great art history classes, some of my faves all time. Like two with Kirsten Pye Buick. She was amazing. She's a brilliant Edmonia Lewis and other artist scholar. All right, this has been a final look at this case. How Literature Saved My Life by David Jones. Cool. And so since I'm not going to talk about the individual books of this paperback literary fiction case until last, since I'm not going to look at these sad personal closet books, at least not until I'm desperate for content, subject matter. We'll be seeing you, you will be that desperate. The books are talking to me again. Found that picture in an old cabin. Believe it or not, this guy worked on a cure for immortality with with a doctor that worked with Charles Lindbergh. And Charles Lindbergh, I mean, it's a really strange story. These people lived out at Sabino, New Mexico. I've always meant to give this picture to the local historical society. I honestly don't want it. It kind of creeped me out. It was in my garage for a long time. But when you find something like this, you can't just leave it out in the desert. It was in a really decrepit structure. If you ever read the book The Immortalists, this guy is a character in it, a nonfiction figure. Yes, we looked at the novels, single author kit shelves, paperback nonfiction, writing books, weird books, and a follow-up look at memoir and crit. Now we venture out. That was about a third of the collection. Past the shelves for younger readers. Pay the petting tax to the kitties. If you want to pass their way, you must pay. Skip the kids' books in the closet too for now. But no, I don't know. Do we look at the antique books? I don't know what my neighbors are yelling about. Something. We could look at science books. These are Southwestern books. We'll save those. We do general nonfiction. Maybe break it into two parts with something in the middle. Here's general nonfiction. Here's general nonfiction. And then later, New Mexico. New Mexico. That's when I'll lose all my subscribers. Something to look forward to. Sorry, but I also do want to finish talking about my book. I mean, I started going over it chapter by chapter, so might as well finish that as a document. I didn't mean for it to take 25 minutes to get through like 7 chapters. That's how it went. I should have some currently reading stuff to talk about sometime soon. Yeah, let's go general nonfiction for this next bit. Just those front-facing books there on the yellow case. So now I gotta find a miracle. Any of you multi-millionaires out there? Hit me up. Let's go into business together. Write something together or something. All right. Just got my car out of the shop. It was so much money. I had to borrow it in advance of a tax return. It was like more than twice what they thought it was going to be. Oh, it's so brutal. But I gave that copy of the Firestone story to the people, and they seemed to appreciate it. Not enough to give me the whole bill free, but I think I did get a slight discount, so that's cool. After the horrible final price that I got. What sucks when you're poor too and you get a car repair is you also know there's still like 10 more things with your car. And I gotta do those other things sometime. Like I was out driving during a windstorm one take, as I had to be, and I made the mistake of driving on Zuni. There's a little bit of a Wild West road just south of Central and parallel to it. I call it the Shadow Central. I've seen everything happen on Zuni. You've seen some things too if you watch Breaking Better, Better Call Saul, because they use that street all the time. One time I was driving down Zuni, and I'm glad someone was in the car with me because I wouldn't have believed it either. But there were the two guys sitting on a bench, and one just shoved the other guy into traffic and was laughing about it, even though his seatmate almost got hit by a car. He's all, ha, ha, ha. And his friend just got up all like grumbling at him, just like walked away, like, you're a jerk. But anyway, I was driving Zuni, and a motorcyclist blew into me. And out of nowhere, they must have been like 2 lanes over or something. I didn't see them until I heard a thump. I thought I was like pretty much alone on the road at the time because the wind was pretty crazy. But anyway, this motorcyclist's helmeted head dented my back left bumper and broke out my back left taillight. And they must not have had insurance because then he or she, I couldn't tell, got up and was like, I'm okay. And then just zipped away. I'm like, yeah, but still, shouldn't we exchange some info or something? And then one day I was driving on Central, and this old guy in front of me just slammed on the brakes so fast, gave me like 6 inches to stop. And I wasn't tailgating or anything. In fact, they had like they slowed. What happened? I don't know. All I know is I am blameless before the Lord in that instance. Okay, my neighbor's turning on music. Hopefully it's not copyrighted, so we can include it in the background, huh? So that made the hood a little harder to open, and the crack in the windshield has grown steadily. It's a 2007 Chevy Malibu. I like it, but it's been through a lot. And all of it has felt like unavoidable. Like it was just, where did that crack come from? I think it was literally from like a piece of gravel, and it spread until it covered the whole thing. Some giant truck that shouldn't have been on the street in front of me. This probably need to look at the very short introduction ones. Anyway, next project, rent. When I haven't been able to work for 2 weeks, I'm like, what do people do in this situation? So hopefully you won't see me on the news. Hopefully APS clears me to go back to work tomorrow or Monday. Come on, I need a job, you jerks.
Yeah, we just need you to not work for 2 weeks while we look at your fingerprints on a computer. I mean, it's good to like make sure everyone's cool and stuff, but they already have all that stuff on file. This seems disorganized. They fingerprinted me before, just in case I got like body swapped with someone. All right. Well, take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. The subscriber numbers aren't really climbing or anything like that, but I want to learn to be happy with what I have. And I'm very grateful that anyone's watching any of these. You know, it's kind of cool, a little literary hangout online. I really enjoy everyone's comments and always think more in response than I actually write. But, all right. Take care, everybody.